Hi, welcome to the video of the WJEC non-calculator November 2019 Maths Past paper. Okay, let's start the paper. Question 1, I'll just get a pen. Question 1. It asks us to complete each row of the following table. The first row has been completed for you. This table shows us a place in Wales, the temperature at 10 a.m, the change in temperature, and then the temperature at 6 p.m. It's done the first row for us, so it's done Cwmbran. It tells us that the temperature at 10 was 2, then it went down by 4 degrees, so 2 minus 4, so the temperature at 6 p.m. was minus 2 degrees C, because 2 minus 4 is minus 2. Let's have a look at Llanelli. Llanelli started at minus 3. It then went down 1 degree, and so it would end up at minus 4. So minus 3 minus 1 is minus 4 degrees C. Let's have a look at Llandailos. The temperature at 10 was minus 4 degrees C. The temperature at 6 was minus 1. So that means it's actually gone up, because minus 1 is warmer than minus 4, and it's actually gone up by 3 degrees C, because minus 4 plus 3 will take you to minus 1. And if we look at the final one, Porthmadog, it tells us that the temperature at the end of the day was 3, but it had gone up 4 degrees from the start of the day, so that means it must have started at minus 1 degrees C, because minus 1 plus 4 gives us 3. Question 2 asks us to write 7%, 3 over 5 and 0.3 in ascending order. That means going from smallest to largest, but you have been given a clue here at the bottom. In order to compare these numbers, we need to either get them all the numbers into percentages, all the numbers into fractions, or all the numbers into decimals. It's up to you which one you choose. I'm going to choose percentages. So look at the first one, 7%. That stays at 7%. I don't need to do anything with that. Let's have a look at the fraction 3 over 5. I want to get that into a percentage. Well, if I know in a fraction, any number over 100 is that percentage. Now, how can I make 5 be 100? Well, I can multiply it by 20. So 5 times 20 is 100. Do the same to the top, multiply it by 20. 3 times 20 is 60. So 3 over 5 is actually 60%. Let's look at 0.3. 0.3 is a decimal. To change that to a percentage, all you do is multiply by 100. So 0.3 multiplied by 100 is 30%. So let's look at our three numbers, 7%, 60% and 30%. So the smallest amount here is 7%. So I'm going to write that in. That's the smallest value. The next smallest is 30%, which I could write 30% here, but it's better to write the original number 0.3. And then the greatest value is 60%, which of course is 3 over 5. Question 3. Question 3 asks us to calculate the value of 3x plus 4y when x is minus 6 and y is 5. So I'm going to substitute x equals minus 6 in here and y equals 5 in here. So the first value, 3 times minus 6 is minus 18. And then plus 4 times y is 5. 4 5s are 20. Minus 18 plus 20 is minus 2, and that's the answer. Part B asks us to simplify the expression 9g minus 4f minus 3g minus 5f. What we've got to do is collect all the g's together and collect all the f's together, and that's what simplify means. So let's collect the g's together. We've got 9g minus 3g. And then we've got minus 4f minus 5f. So 9g minus 3g is 6g. Minus 4f minus 5f is minus 9f. And that's the answer to that question. Part C asks us to solve the equation 3m minus 7 equals 8. Solving an equation means finding the value of the letter. And the way that you do that is you want to rearrange the equation such that m equals something. Okay, so if we start off with 3m minus 7 is equal to 8, there are two steps to this equation. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that minus 7. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So 3m minus 7 plus 7 is equal to 8 plus 7. Now minus 7 plus 7 is nothing, so that leaves me with 3m on this side. 8 and 7 is 15. Now 3m is equal to 15, so I want to get m on its own, so I'm going to divide now both sides by 3. So 3m divided by 3 is equal to 15 divided by 3. The 3's cancel out, leaving m on its own is equal to 15 divided by 3 is 5. So that's the answer to that question. Part D, expand the brackets for 3x minus 5. When the word expand means to get rid of the brackets, so there's an invisible multiply between the 4 and the brackets. So you have to take each term in the brackets and multiply by what's outside. So the first part of the calculation is 4 times 3x, and then you've got plus, and I'll put some brackets around that just to help me, 4 times minus 5. Okay, 4 times 3x is 12x. 4 times minus 5 is minus 20. So that's the answer, 12x minus 20. Okay, if we come to question 4 now. Question 4 tells us that the mean of two numbers is 7 and the range of these two numbers is 8. It asks us what these numbers could be. Well, if the mean of two numbers is 7, if you remember, you have to add numbers a and b and then divide by the number of numbers, which in this case is 2, and you'd get the answer 7. That tells us that the two numbers a and b added together must equal 14, because 14 divided by 2 gives us 7. The second clue is that it tells us that the range of these two numbers is 8. So that means the largest number, say it's a, minus the smallest number b, must be 8. Okay, so now we have these two clues. The numbers add to 14 and largest take away smallest is 8. So what two numbers add to 14? Well, 1 and 13 would add to 14. So that's the mean. So that's correct. But the range here would be 13 take away 1, which is 12. So that's too big. We're looking for 8. So I'm going to try another two numbers, 2 and 12. So they add to 14, but the range is 12 take away 2, which is 10. So that's too big. Let's try the next set. 3 and 11 add to 14. 11 take away 3 is 8. So that works for both of our clues. So our two numbers are 3 and 11. Let's look at question 5. Question 5 asks us to calculate the size of angle X, this angle here, and give a bearing of point B from A. Well, first part of the question, find the size of angle X. One of the things I must remember is that the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So X must be equal to 180. So X has to be equal to 180. Take away this angle here, which is 50. Take away this angle here, which is 90. That symbol tells us it's 90. So that means X is 40 degrees. So I'll write that in my answer box. If x is 40 degrees, I always write that in. It asks, so the second part of the question asks us to give the bearing of point B from point A. So we have to start at north and measure in a clockwise direction the angle to the line connecting A and B. Well, we know that bit is 40, this bit here is 90, so the bearing is 40 and 90, which is 130 degrees. And that's the answer. Question 6. A group of pupils is asked whether they can speak Welsh, French, or both languages, or neither. Their answers are shown in the Venn diagram below. The universal set, that means all the pupils, contains all the pupils in the group. So this box contains all the pupils in the group. This pupil out here doesn't speak either Welsh or French. The pupils in this circle speak Welsh. The pupils in this circle speak French. And the pupils in the middle speak both Welsh and French, the overlapping circles. So how many of the pupils can't speak French? Well, we've got the 8 people who can speak Welsh and the 1 person who speaks neither. So that means there's 9 people. Part B, one pupil from the group is chosen at random. What's the probability that this pupil can speak both Welsh and French? So the probability is there's 3 people who can speak Welsh and French. So probability, the top half of the fraction is 3, the number of successful outcomes, out of a total of how many pupils in total were there? Well, there was 1 and 8 is 9, and 3 is 12, and 2 is 14. So there were 4 pupils. So the probability is 3 out of 14. Let's go now to question 7. Question 7 asks us to find the whole number which satisfies all of the following conditions, and it gives us a number of clues. So I'm going to work my way through the clues to find out the whole number that we're looking for. The first clue is that the number I'm looking for is a whole number between 1 and 40 inclusive. That means it can be any number including 1 and 40. The second clue tells us that the number is a multiple of 4 but not a multiple of 8. So I'm going to look at the multiples of 4 first. So you've got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36 and 40. So those are my multiples of 4. It tells me it's not a multiple of 8, so I'm going to work out the multiples of 8. So we've got 8, 16, 24, 32 and 40. It tells us it's not a multiple of 8, so that means the number can't be 16, it can't be 24, it can't be 32, and it can't be 40. So after clue 2, the numbers it could be are 4, oh, it can't be the number 8 either. It can be 4, 12, 20, 28, and 36. The next clue is that 3 is a factor of this number. That means 3 can go into this number with no remainder. So I'm just going to look at the 3 times tables. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36 and 39. So 3 is a factor of this number. So 4 isn't in the 3 times table, so 3 isn't a factor of 4. 12 is, 20 isn't, 28 isn't, but 36 is. So after that third clue, my number will either be 12 or 36. The final clue is that the number is a square number. Now, a square number is achieved when you take one number and multiply it by itself. If I look at 36, I can see that 6 times 6 is equal to 36. So 36 is a square number. If I look at the number 12, I can have 2 times 6, 3 times 4, but never the same number multiplied by itself. So 12 is not a square number. The square number is 36, so my answer to this question is 36. Here we are at question 8. What is the total mass when 534 grams is added to 3.5 kilograms? Okay, so we've got different units there. So we have to put them into the same units, add them up, and then see what we get. So 534 grams added to 3.5 kilograms, which is 3,500 grams. So I've put them both into grams there. So add them up. So we've got 4,034 grams, which is 4.034 kilograms, because I've divided it by 1,000. Now there's one answer which is 4.034 kilograms, and there it is. Part B, what is the total length when 35 centimetres is added to 7.8 metres? So we've got centimetres and metres. Now, if you remember, there are 100 centimetres in 1 metre. So let's change 7.8 metres into centimetres, which means multiplying it by 100. 7.8 multiplied by 100 is 780. Add the 35 to that 780 and we get 815 centimetres. And there it is there in our list. Finally, for question 8, how many millimetres cubed are there in 4 centimetres cubed? Well, in 1 centimetres cubed, there is 1,000 millimetres cubed. So in 4 centimetres cubed, there are 4,000 millimetres cubed. Question 9 asks us to express 60 out of 300 as a percentage, to turn it into a fraction with 60 on the top and 300 on the bottom. And that will be our fraction. Then multiply it by 100 to get it into a percentage. So if I do that calculation, to make it easier, I can divide top and bottom by 10. So 3 into 60 goes 20 times, so it's 20%, and that's the answer. Okay, part B. Some people were asked a question. 40% of the people answered yes. A sketch of the pie chart showing this information is shown below. Calculate the size of angle X so that the pie chart can be drawn accurately. So 40% of the people are represented by this angle X. We know that the entire population of the entire number of people who are asked would be 360 degrees. So we need to find out what 40% of 360 degrees is to find this angle X. So the calculation is 40 over 100 multiplied by 360. Because this is a non-calculator paper, I'll just do it like that. 436s are 144 degrees. So the answer is 144 degrees. Let's move on to the next question now, which is question 10. Now, immediately I look at question 10 and I can see that there are 2 marks for organisation, communication and writing. So I'll need to write this out correctly, making sure to use all units so that I get as many marks as possible. So let me read the question. The diagram below shows a rectangle ABCF and a trapezium. That's the rectangle, that's the trapezium. AF is 7 centimetres, ED is 8 centimetres, the perpendicular distance between FC and ED is 6 centimetres, and the area of the rectangle is 91 centimetres squared. It asks us to calculate the area of the trapezium. At the front of your exam paper is a formula for the area of the trapezium, and that formula reads something like the area of a trapezium is ED, the length of side ED, plus the length of side FC, divide that by 2, and then multiply the answer by the perpendicular height, which I'm going to represent by this symbol. and you'll get the area of the trapezium. Now let's see what we already know. We don't know the area. We know the length ED because we're given it, which is 8 centimetres. We know the perpendicular height, which is 6 centimetres. We don't know the length of FC. But we are able to work that out because we're given this rectangle below. We know the area and we know one side. Now the area of the rectangle, so the area of AFCB, is the length times the width. Now the area of AFCB is 91 centimetres squared, and the length is something we don't know, but we do know the width is 7 centimetres. So the length is actually the line FC. So I can rub that out and put the length of the line FC. Now we can work out FC by rearranging this equation. So 91 divided by 7 gives me the answer of 13. So I know the length of the line FC is 13. Now we know the length of FC, we can put it into this formula here to find out the area of the trapezium. So the area of the trapezium is equal to ED, which is 8 centimetres, plus FC, which we've said is 13 centimetres. I'll just write centimetres there, divide it by 2, and then multiply it by the perpendicular height, which is 6. So 8 and 13 is 21. 21 divided by 2 is 11 and a half. 11 and a half multiplied by 6 is 63 centimetres squared. And that's the area of the trapezium. When you actually do this in the exam, you might want to write it out in a little bit more detail to make sure that you do get the full 2 OCW marks. Question 11. 200 young people are taking part in a conference held at Aberystwyth. One of the young people is chosen at random to be the chairperson. Complete the table to find the probability that the person chosen lives outside the UK. So it wants us to fill in that box there. Now, in probability, we know 200 young people were interviewed. So the probability of where they live will add up to 1. So to find out how many live outside the UK, or the probability that the person will live outside the UK, we take that 1 and take all the other numbers away from it, 0.2, 0.3, 0.25, and 0.15. And we find the answer comes to 0.1. So we put that in there, 0.1. Question B, how many of the 200 young people live in Mid Wales? Well, the probability that somebody lives in Mid Wales is 0.3. So 0.3 of 200 young people live in Mid Wales. So if we do that calculation, 0.3 of 200 young people is 60 people. So 60 people live in Mid Wales. Question 12. Describe fully the single transformation that transforms triangle A onto triangle B. Now, triangle A and B are reflections of each other, but they're not reflections through the axis. If we draw the mirror line down here, we can see that it cuts the x-axis at 2. So for any value of y, x will always equal 2. So that line is x equals 2. So the single transformation we can describe as a reflection in line x equals, oops, it's minus 2, not 2, minus 2. So part B, translate the triangle A using the column vector 5 and 6. Now this is the x value and this is the y value. If it's positive, you move x to the right. If it's negative, you move the point to the left. On the y value, if it's positive, you move the point up, and if it's negative, you move the point down. So the column vector 5, so I'm going to pick a point on the shape, and I'm going to move it 5 places over to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the y translation, I'm going to move it 6 places down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to copy the triangle carefully. Whoops. You'll be able to do this with the ruler and pencil in the exam. And that is a translation of triangle A using the column vector 5, 6. Now, part 2 of this question asks us to write down the column vector that will reverse the translation. So if I wanted to take triangle B to A, I would move this point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the left. So that's -5. And then I would move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd move it +6 upwards. And that's a reversion of the translation. Question 13. Question 13 asks us to work out the exterior angle of a polygon. Well, it tells us that the exterior angle of a polygon is 36. So how many sides does the polygon have? You need to remember that the exterior angles of any polygon add up to 360 degrees. So how many sides does it have? If we take our 360 degrees, divide it by 36, we get the answer of 10. So this polygon has 10 sides. Part B asks us to calculate the sum of all the interior angles of the polygon. So we've worked out the exterior angles. Just do a little sketch of 1 or 2 of the angles. This is the exterior angle and this is the interior angle. So the exterior angle and the interior angle will add to 180. So the interior angle of this 10-sided polygon is 180 less 36, because we were told that the exterior angle is 36. 180 less 36 is 144 degrees. So each of these internal angles is 144 degrees. Now we know there are 10 of these internal angles because there are 10 sides. So take our 144, multiply it by 10. The answer is 1440, and that is the sum of all the interior angles of that polygon. Question 14 asks us to write down the first 3 terms of the sequence whose nth term is given by n squared minus 6. So if you remember your sequences, n is 1 for the first term, 2 for the second term, and 3 for the third term. So when n is 1, n squared minus 6, 1 squared minus 6 will be minus 5. When n is 2, the second term will be 2 squared, which is 4 minus 6, which is minus 2. And the third term, when n is 3, is 3 squared, which is 9, minus 6. So the answer will be 3. So the 3 terms are minus 5, minus 2, and 3. Next part of the question asks us to write down an expression for the nth term of the following sequence. First thing we have to work out is the difference between each term in our sequence. The difference between 5 and 11 is 6. To get from 5 to 11, I add 6. And I do the same between each number, and that takes me to the next number. 11 plus 6 is 17. 17 plus 6 is 23. So I know our expression is going to contain 6n. but I don't know whether it's adding or subtracting something to take me to the value of that term. So if this is the first term, this is the second, this is the third, and this is the fourth, we know that n will equal 1 in the first term. So 6 times n would give us 6 for the first term, but we actually want 5, so I'm going to take 1 away. So I'm suggesting that's the expression for the nth term. Let me test it with when n is 3. When n is 3, 6 times n is 18, minus 1, which will give us 17, which is the third term. So I'm happy with that answer. Question 15. Question 15 asks us to circle the correct answer for each of the following. 81 is equal to 3 to the power 3, 9 to the power 3, or any of the others. Well, I know 3 is a factor of 81. So I know 81. I also know 9 is a factor of 81. So 81 could be 9 times 9, or 9 squared. If I look through my list, there's no 9 squared there. So it can't be 9 squared. I know 9 is 3 times 3. And then the other 9 is 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 would give me 81. And that is 3 to the power 4. And there I can see it there in my list. At question B, 2.1 to the power 5 means 2.1 times 2.1 times 2.1 times 2.1 times 2.1. So that's 5. It's multiplied by itself 5 times. Now, we might have to do the calculation, but let's do a few things first. Let's look at 2 to the power 5. 2 2s are 4, 2 4s are 8, 2 8s are 16, 2 16s are 32. So the number's going to be larger than 32. So we can cross out that one, and we're left with 3 numbers. Now, there's no other way to do this other than to calculate what the answer to that calculation is. And the way I'd do this, I'd multiply 2.1 times 2.1, and that gives me 4.41. Do that again. 2.1 times 2.1 is 4.41. Multiply those two together, and we get 19.44. Then, so that's me multiplied 2.1 by itself 4 times. I've got to do it one more time. 19.44 times 2.1 is equal to 40.84. And I'd have to use just long multiplication. So here's my answer in the list. So just circle it. Part C, 12.96 to the power of a half. That actually means the square root of 12.96. Quite tricky, really. But let's have a look at, well, what would be the square root of 9, which is the lower number? That's 3. What about the square root of 16? That would be 4. So I know my answer lies between 3 and 4. So I can cross out that one, cross out that one, and cross out that one, because I know my answer lies between 3 and 4. Now, the first, it could be 3.6, so I actually have to do the calculation. 3.6 times 3.6. When I work that out, it actually gives me 12.96, and that's what I'm looking for, so that's my answer. Question 16. Using only a ruler and a pair of compasses, construct a triangle PQR so that it satisfies both of the following conditions. PQR is 60 and PQ is 7 centimeters. Side QR has been drawn for you. So I'm actually going to just sketch out what the triangle should look like. If that's Q and that's R, that's going to be P. The angle PQR is going to be 60 degrees. and PQ is going to be 7 centimeters. So you have to use a ruler and a set of compasses to first of all draw the angle of, or construct an angle of 60 degrees. Okay, so using your compasses, you put the point of your compass here and draw an arc that crosses the line PQ. Keeping the compasses at the same length, you move the point of your compass to the point where the arc crosses PQ, and you draw an arc that crosses the arc you've just created. Now, if you join Q to the intersect of those two arcs, that will be an angle of 60 degrees. Then all you have to do is take a ruler and measure 7 centimeters on your ruler. And this point here will be point P. Join P to R, whoop, carefully, and you've drawn your triangle. Now this isn't drawn accurately because I can't do that using this software. But you will have to use a ruler to get 7 centimeters accurately and a set of compasses to construct your angle. Part B tells us, using a ruler and a pair of compasses, construct a line from point A that is perpendicular to the line LM. Perpendicular means at 90 degrees. So I'm going to do a quick sketch first to see what my diagram will eventually look like. That's my line LM. That's my point A. So I'm going to draw a diagram that will enable a line to be constructed, which is at 90 degrees from point A. So the first thing I do, I take my compasses and I put the point of the compass at point A, and then I draw an arc which crosses the line LM in 2 places. I then take the point of my compass and put it on this intersection and draw an arc. I remove my compasses, put them on this point of the intersection, draw another arc, and then join at point A to where the arcs intersect. Whoops. And then that angle will be 90 degrees, and that's you drawn your a line perpendicular to LM. Question 17. Dylan is having a weekend break in Wrexham. The probability that he'll visit Erddig Gardens is 0.7, which is indicated by this number here. The probability of Dylan going to Bersham Heritage Centre is independent of him visiting Erddig Gardens. That means it doesn't matter whether he visits Erddig Gardens or not in his decision to go to Bersham Heritage Centre. The probability that he visits Erddig Gardens and goes to Bersham Heritage Centre is 0.28. Complete the following tree diagram. Well, we know that the branches of the tree diagram add to 1. So this set of branches here will add to 1. So 1 minus 0.7 is 0.3. So we can fill that in. But we don't know what numbers go here to enable us to fill it in. But what we do know is that the probability of him going to Erddig Gardens and Bersham Heritage Centre is equal to 0.28. Now that probability is calculated by the probability of him visiting Erddig, and, so and in probabilities multiply, the probability of him going to Bersham. So what we can say is that the probability of Erddig, which is 0.7, times the probability of him going to Bersham is equal to 0.28. So therefore that gives us the ability to say that the probability for going to Bersham is equal to 0.4. Because 0.28 divided by 0.7 is 0.4. So I can fill that in now, 0.4. Again, the branches of the tree add up to 1. So 1 minus 0.4 is 0.6. And then we just replicate this down here, 0.4 and 0.6. And that's the tree diagram completed for 4 marks. Part B asks us to calculate the probability that Dylan visits Erddig Gardens but doesn't go to Bersham Heritage Centre. So it's the probability of him going to Erddig Gardens but not going to the Heritage Centre. So it's the probability of 0.7, probability of him going to Erddig Gardens, and he doesn't go to the centre, to Bersham Centre, so it's times 0.6. 0.7 times 0.6 is equal to 0.42. So 0.7 times 0.6 is equal to 0.42. Question 18. In the following formula, each measurement of length is represented by a letter. Consider the dimensions implied by the formula. For each case, write down whether the formula could be a length, an area, a volume, or none of these. The first one has been done for you. Now, they're telling us the first one is area, and I can see that because in the first term, you've got r squared, the length squared, which is an area, minus the second term, which is also an area because it's d times w. So I can understand that. Let's look at the second term. The first term is cubed, so that's volume. The second term is also cubed, so it's one volume minus another volume, so the answer is volume. Third question, you've got three terms. Each one is one letter, 3w plus 2d plus h. So they're all lengths, so the answer is length. Let's look at this next one. You've got the first term, which is d times h times r, which is volume because it's three lengths multiplied together. And the second term has volume in it as well, which is d times d times d times 5. So that's volume. So it's volume. Now the next one, the first term is a length because it's got one letter in. The second term is an area because it's r squared. So it's an area less a length. So it's none of the above. It can be neither a length nor an area nor a volume. The final term is d times w times h divided by r. So that means you would be left with two letters multiplied by themselves, and that would be area. Question 19. Factorise x squared plus 4x minus 21. Factorise means to split that equation up into brackets which are multiplied by each other. It's going to be two brackets because we have the x squared term. It then asks us to solve the equation when it's equal to 0. So the first step I do in factorising is put my two brackets in. Then I look at two numbers whose product will be minus 21, but the sum will be plus 4. So two numbers, when they're multiplied together, will give you 21. When you add them together, they'll give you 4. Well, let's look at 21. I can start with 1 times 21, or 1 times I'll forget the signs for the minute. 1 times 21 would not give us 4. Can't do 2. Let me try 3 times 7. 3 sevens would give us 21. Now, if I took 3 away from 7, it would give me plus 4. So if this was a positive 7 and this was a negative 3, positive 7 multiplied by negative 3 would give me negative 21. Positive 7 minus 3 would give me 4. So those are my two numbers, minus 3 and 7, positive 7. Then for the first term, it's just x times x. Now, as a check, I always multiply this out. X times x is x squared. Minus 3 times positive 7 is minus 21. We've got minus 3x and plus, minus 3x plus 7x. Simplify that, x squared plus 4x minus 21. So that's correct. Now it says when this is equal to 0, I have to solve it. Now we take our brackets, x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 7 is equal to 0. Now I want to get x on its own, so if I divide both sides by x minus 3, so x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 7 divided by x minus 3 is equal to 0 divided by x minus 3. Now these two cancel each other out, so we've got x plus 7 on one side, 0 divided by x minus 3, 0 divided by anything is 0, so you've got x plus 7 is equal to 0, so x is equal to minus 7. And by the same method, we find out that x could also be equal to positive 3. So x is equal to minus 7 or positive 3. The next part of the question asks us to solve this equation. In order to solve this equation, I want all the terms to be not fractions. So if I multiply each side of the equation by the lowest common multiple, which will be 10, I'll be able to get rid of all these fractions and my equations. So if I multiply this side of the equation first by 10, so 10 times 2x minus 3 over 5 plus 10 times 4x plus 5 over 2. It's got to equal 10 times 11 over 2. So I'm going to cancel these down now. So that cancels down to twice times 2x minus 3 plus 2 into 10 goes 5 times 4x plus 5. And then 2 into 10 goes 5 times 11. So let's multiply this out. 2 2s are 4, so that's 4x minus 6 plus 20x plus 25 is equal to 55. Now I'm going to simplify this by collecting all the terms. So 4x and 20x is 24x. Minus 6 plus 25 is plus 19 is equal to 55. Now bear in mind, I'm solving this, so I want x on its own. So I'm going to get rid of that 19 first by taking 19 from both sides. So that leaves me with 24x is equal to 55 minus 19, which is 36. So 24x is equal to 36. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 24, leaving me x on this side is equal to 36 over 24. You could leave it like that or simplify it down. Both top and bottom can be divided by 6. So that would be 6 over 4, which is 3 over 2. And the final question on the exam paper, question 20. A cuboid measures 40 times 40 by 25 by 12 millimeters, as shown in this diagram. All the measurements are correct to the nearest millimeter. 4 of the cuboids are stacked together as shown below. Write down the greatest possible value of length A. Well, length A is 40 millimeters, but it's to the nearest millimeter. So it could be 40.5 millimeters, because that would be 40 millimeters to the nearest millimeter. The next question, calculate the greatest possible value of the length B and give your answer in millimeters. Well, B, we have 25, but the greatest possible value, it could be 25.5. So you've got 2 together, so 25.5 plus 25.5 is equal to 51. So it could be 51 millimeters. And part C, calculate the least possible value of C. Well, C could be, C we can see is 12 millimeters. The least possible value is 11.5 millimeters. So you've got 11.5 millimeters plus another 11.5 millimeters. That would be the length of C. So it's 11.5 plus 11.5, which is 23 millimeters.